All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and unpack what is, hands down, the most desperate physics-bending military clash of the late 30th century. We're looking at a world that's been completely flipped upside down. Traditional ground warfare? Yeah, that is a thing of the distant past. Humanity's very survival now entirely hinges on pushing the absolute limits of science.
Now picture this tactical nightmare for a second. Humanity is basically trapped on the surface, huddled on whatever high-altitude mountain ranges they can still hold. And meanwhile, an overwhelmingly superior alien force just completely dominates the crushing pitch-black depths of the Pacific Ocean. They don't even have to come up for air to wage this war. Their mere presence at the bottom of the ocean totally paralyzes global logistics. So how on earth do you strike an empire that you literally cannot physically reach?
To make sense of this, we're going to break this conflict down into 6 quick parts: the Aquatic Stalemate, weaponizing deep-sea pressure, target Emperor Seamounts, hypersonic aerial bombardment, the subsurface clash, and finally, the enzymatic aftermath.
Starting things off with Part 1, the Aquatic Stalemate.
So before the shooting starts, you gotta understand the board we're playing on. Armies, tanks, ground forces, all totally obsolete. We are looking at the ultimate David versus Goliath scenario here. After the initial invasion, humanity had to completely rethink its military. We retreated into these heavily fortified mountain bunkers, thank the Swiss Alps or the Tibetan Plateau. All of our manufacturing pivoted exclusively to hypersonic air fleets and stealth submarines. But on the flip side, the invaders rule from a hyper-pressurized megacity anchored 6 miles deep in the Mariana Trench, and they use these massive 100-foot biomechanical bioships. It is a complete deadlocked atmospheric and aquatic stalemate.
Which brings us to Part 2, weaponizing deep-sea pressure.
Here is where it gets brilliant. Human tacticians realized something huge. They didn't actually need to overpower the aliens. They just had to let the environment do the dirty work. And that brings us to our physics lesson for today: explosive decompression. Basically, this is the violent outward explosion of a pressurized container when it's suddenly exposed to a much lower pressure environment. See, those alien bioships aren't just vehicles. They're essentially massive living pressure suits for the aliens inside. If humanity can just manage to crack that outer shell while the ship is in shallower waters, well, the terrifying laws of physics will take care of the rest.
To put this into perspective, these biological ships maintain an internal pressure of over 1,000 bar. That is literally equivalent to the crushing weight of the Mariana Trench. These aliens are extreme pisophiles, meaning they absolutely require immense pressure just to hold their cells together. They carry that deep trench pressure inside their ships wherever they go. So if a human weapon punctures that hull at, say, 2,000 meters deep, the alien isn't crushed by the ocean outside. Actually, it's the exact opposite. That 1,000 bar of internal pressure violently erupts outward. In a stroke of really dark tactical irony, the pilot is pulverized by its own life support system. It completely flips the traditional rules of submarine warfare on their head.
Because of this, human alliance doctrine locked into a really strict 3-pronged asymmetric strategy. You cannot muscle them, right? So instead, you break their communications from the stratosphere, you crack their pressurized holes in the mid-depths to let physics kill the pilots, and then you use tailored chemistry to melt their deep-sea infrastructure down where your weapons physically cannot reach.
Moving right along to Part 3, target Emperor Seamounts.
Fast forward to the year 2974. This brutal stratagem gets put to the ultimate test in the largest naval-aerial engagement of the Third Millennium. The target? The Emperor Seamount chain. This was an underwater mountain range that the invaders used as a massive geological thermal conduit. They built these huge biosilicon pylons along the peaks to route energy up to their northern hubs. To cut this artery, humanity deployed Task Force 99, that's 120 suborbital bombers and 42 stealth attack subs. And standing in their way was Fleet Unit Nethis, a defending cluster of 60 heavily armored bioships backed up by bioelectric surface defenses.
Let's look at the timeline. This historic clash cascaded perfectly from the stratosphere down to the ocean floor over 6 really intense days in October. Phase 1 was the aerial strike. Phase 2 is the vicious subsurface naval clash. And Phase 3 delivered the final chemical knockout blow.
All right, Part 4, hypersonic aerial bombardment.
Things kick off at 30,000 meters up, safely out of reach of oceanic retaliation. At 0400 hours, the human air fleet strikes first, dropping kinetic armor-piercing darts straight from the stratosphere. Now, normally hitting the ocean at Mach 8 would just instantly shatter a projectile, but these were special. They were designed to transition into super-cavitating underwater projectiles. That means they created a localized gas vapor bubble around themselves the second they hit the water, drastically dropping the drag and letting them keep their lethal speed. In the blink of an eye, these hypersonic darts smashed right into the submerged pylons, throwing up massive thermal plumes and instantly blinding the aliens' local communication grid.
Part 5. The Subsurface Clash. With the surface absolutely burning and the enemy blinded, the fight dives into the pitch-black mid-depths. This was, without a doubt, the most dangerous phase. Human stealth submarines crept in, but actually tracking the enemy was a total nightmare. Standard acoustic sonar was completely useless because the bioships had these soft, acoustic dampening outer skins. You literally couldn't hear them coming. So, human tactical officers had to rely on hydroquantum magnetometers. They were hunting in the pitch black by measuring localized magnetic distortions, basically sniffing out the strange quantum fusion reactors powering the alien ships.
Spooked by the airstrikes, the invaders unleashed a vanguard of 30 living bioships from the Emperor Seamount. The human stealth subs met them head-on at depths between 1,500 and 2,500 meters. Our vanguard launched a desperate, massive salvo of 80 super-cavitating torpedoes. And these weren't standard explosives. They were tipped with specialized tungsten carbide penetrators, engineered perfectly to punch right through the specific quantum silicon alloy of the alien bioarmor. Against all odds, they scored direct kinetic hits on the lead enemy vessel.
We actually have a recovered log from the Human Alliance submarine Vanguard, and it hits the nail on the head. It says, "Target cracked. The internal counterpressure erupted outward. The entity was pulverized by its own pressurized life support shell." The exact second that tungsten carbide tip shattered the armor, that 1,000 bar of internal pressure violently decompressed. The alien pilot was quite literally destroyed from the inside out by the very suit keeping it alive.
And finally, Part 6, the enzymatic aftermath.
Seeing their lead ship just catastrophically erupt without a single traditional explosive going off, the rest of the alien vanguard panicked and retreated. This gave the human bombers the opening they needed for the final phase. Now, you can't really bomb a target 1,000 meters underwater with normal explosives, but you absolutely can use gravity and chemistry. The suborbital bombers dropped hyperdense mineral shells loaded with highly engineered silica-degrading enzymes. Because they were so dense, ocean currents didn't wash them away. They sank like stones, landing directly onto those submerged alien pylons like a highly corrosive dust cloud. This was tailored chemical warfare at its absolute finest. The enzymes specifically hunted down the molecular silicate bonds of the alien biocircuitry. Over just 48 hours, those massive pylon supports were completely dissolved into a useless, non-conductive sludge. By melting the structural foundations, the energy and communication routing to the invaders' northern coastal harvesting hubs was totally severed. So what is the big takeaway here? The Battle of the Emperor Seamounts officially cemented the Human Alliance's asymmetric doctrine. By destroying those pylons, humanity starved the enemy's northern logistics in places like Tokyo and Kamchatka for 6 full months. It brought their operations there to a dead halt. This victory proved that even though we could never survive down in the abyssal trenches, we could absolutely turn the invaders' own extreme biology into a weapon against them. We've seen how incredible asymmetrical tactics can win a major battle. Humanity found the weak spot in the enemy's armor by using deep-sea pressure to our advantage. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a seriously chilling thought. Our survival currently hinges entirely on the fact that these creatures cannot survive in our low-pressure atmosphere. If an enemy with trillions of quantum-dense neurons ever manages to adapt their biology to surface pressure, we lose our only real advantage. Keep that terrifying hypothetical in mind. Thanks for exploring this one with us.